You would never say, okay, let's withhold love from this child, because that would be ludicrous. You were that child at one point, and you are still a child, essentially living in an adult's body. My name is Jack, and welcome to States Unlocked, the place to learn about social psychology, human behaviour, and also learn practical tips on how you can improve your life. If you want to understand yourself and others better, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're notified whenever I upload a new video. And I just want to say thanks for clicking on this video, because this video is going to teach you all about self-compassion and what it means to love the self. I'm going to say up front, I'm in a constant journey of learning how to love myself on deeper levels, and it's not something that is black and white. I really do believe that. I think we are all on a journey in life, and we're all experiencing highs and lows, and we're going to have setbacks, and we're going to have breakthroughs, and it's just part of the process. But I've had a few insights that I really want to share with you. Loving the self isn't always easy when you don't necessarily know the self. When we say myself, we don't necessarily break down those words, but actually myself. Okay, so we all have a self. You have a self. If we've gone through neglect, emotional abuse, or been treated badly in any kind of way, sometimes this can actually distance us further and further and further from ourselves. And this video is all about how we can reconnect with ourselves and actually have compassion for ourselves and love ourselves, and in turn love everyone else as well. So if you're a person that struggles with perfectionism, the chances are you tend to think, okay, I will be valid when I have this, when I'm like this. And you almost withhold this love for yourself until things are perfect. But the problem is with that is that there is no such point. Let's say that you really don't feel good about your appearance, and you think, okay, well, if I change this and I change this and I change this, then I'll look good. When you have that mentality, it's the mentality that is the problem, because the goalposts keep moving. Okay, so that is the mentality. So it doesn't matter if you enter this game of this mentality, because it's the mentality that's the problem. It's the frame through which you're seeing things. So let's say you think, I change this, I change this, I change this, then I'll be happy. Now the chances are, if you change all of those things, you're then going to come up with another 3 things that you want to change. And this is often seen with people that get lots of plastic surgery. They think if they change their nose, or they change their ass, or they change their cheeks, or they change their whatever, that they are going to then feel good about themselves. But the problem was never their nose, their ass, or their cheeks. The problem was their mentality about that. Now, I'm not saying that making changes in our life can not lead to actual changes in the way we feel, because it can. But I think a lot of the time we actually preserve this love and this self-compassion for when we're perfect. So this can be a problem within the self-help field. So many people get addicted to healing, okay, which isn't necessarily healing, because sometimes healing is a lack of self-acceptance. This part of me is defective, this part of me is defective, this part of me is defective, I had a bad childhood, I had this abusive relationship, I had this, I had that, I need to somehow heal all of this stuff, and then I'll be lovable, and then I'll be able to attract a partner, and then I'll be worthy of love, and I won't have any problems in my life and everything else. The difficulty with this is that essentially we are not accepting ourselves as we are right now, with our good points and the points we don't necessarily like. You're worthy of love exactly as you are right now, even if you are not a very nice person. What a concept. The chances are you are a nice person, and you actually really do deserve love, because we all deserve love. We're worthy of love just inherently from being born. You would never look at a baby and say, okay, well actually, they have this physical feature, so therefore let's not give them love. They don't deserve love. Or a child, let's say, is being a bit nasty one day. You would never say, okay, well, they don't deserve love. Or even a child that is selfish or whatever else. You would never say, okay, let's withhold love from this child, because that would be ludicrous. You were that child at one point, and you are still a child, essentially living in an adult's body. Obviously, assuming you're an adult watching this video. We never really lose this inner child, okay? So we always need to love ourselves and this inner child in turn, and we need to actually accept the things about us that we don't like. So there are things about myself that I really like, and there are things about myself that I really don't like, and actually that's okay, because I'm worthy of love with both of these things. Now sometimes it can really be difficult when you have been conditioned that you are unlovable, or you have been mistreated, and you start to internalize the voices of other people, and you start to think, well, actually I'm not lovable, and maybe if I could just do this better, or if I could change this habit, or if I look different, or if I whatever, then I'd be lovable, then I'd get my needs met, then all my feelings would change. It's this idea that love is conditional, that you only deserve love when when you're perfect, and there is no such thing as perfection. I know this is something that I've struggled with, and a lot of people struggle with as a society. We're constantly grasping for this perfection, this constant making things better. But it doesn't work, because actually You are good as you are. There are people who really do feel good enough and they don't feel that they are constantly having to grasp and, improve themselves or whatever else, because they have this core self-worth. So a lot of us tend to tie our self-worth in with our jobs, our relationships, our appearance, how many followers we've got on social media, whatever it may be. And we actually put our self-worth into this and it becomes entangled in this. So let's say your social media following isn't great, or you don't look the way you want to look. So therefore your self-esteem is nil because you don't have the life that you want to have. Or let's say you do look the way you want to look, and then you start aging and you lose your looks, and all of your self-worth was tied into that, and you lose your self-worth. Let's say you want a relationship. You get this relationship and this guy or this girl is just the bee's knees, they're the best thing ever, and then they turn out that they aren't so great actually, and then you lose them and the relationship ends, and then you're left with no self-worth. I'm not saying that any of these things for a healthy person would not affect them. They would still affect any person, we're all human. But I think the difficulty is when we put our eggs all in this basket and we don't actually put our eggs in different baskets and be like, okay, I'm going to give some of my value to this part of my life, some of my value to this part of my life, some of my value to this part of my life, and all throughout I'm going to be valuing and honoring myself. So this is definitely a learning process for all of us, and I know that it can be difficult sometimes because self-compassion really sometimes for many of us is not what we've been practicing for years. And sometimes it could be because we had overly critical parents, or parents that didn't really love themselves or didn't know how to love themselves, and therefore could never love you in the way that you needed them to. So my belief is that the majority of people across the world in society are emotionally immature. They don't have a high level of emotional intelligence, and this can create a lot of problems because a lot of people's answer to emotions is to just shove them down, ignore them, dissociate, detach, and this, if it's done consciously, can be a helpful thing because, especially for people who are empathic and codependent and struggle with enmeshment, this can be something really difficult because we can feel as if we are just completely too tuned in to everything going on around us, and it can be very overwhelming for the nervous system, and it can really wreak havoc in our lives. But I would say the majority of people in the world actually struggle with the opposite problem, where they are too numbed out from their feelings and they have switched off and they are so disconnected with themselves. To have a self is to know yourself, to know what you feel, to actually know what you like, what you don't like, what you're moving towards, what you want to move away from, to actually be in touch with yourself and actually be attuned to yourself. But the thing is, if you detach from yourself, then this means you detach from everyone else as well, and it can be difficult to practice empathy for others. The problem with empathy sometimes is that we think enmeshment is empathy, and it isn't. Enmeshment happens when we abandon ourselves and we take on the emotions of other people, and it feels as if we are being empathetic and we are caring for them, but it isn't necessarily the case because we are abandoning ourselves. We are not necessarily recognizing this is a different person having this experience and this is me. And if you're someone that struggles with enmeshment, it can be said that you aren't necessarily protecting yourself, okay? So we need to have this differentiation, it's called, where we actually can recognize that I am different from you, you are different from her, he is different from she, etc. And we all have different selves, and it means that we can actually empathize from a loving place, but with some detachment. So I believe to have a high level of self-compassion, you have to have a high level of self-awareness. You have to really understand all of the different parts of yourself and be willing to accept them, especially the parts that you don't like, especially the parts that you want to change. You have to have compassion for that part because every single part of you was an adaptation, and it was adaptive. It was an adaptive response. Even the parts you don't like, especially the parts that you don't like, need love the most because actually they have been judged so much by this inner critic. The parts that you don't like about yourself sometimes are what other people judged about you, and you internalize that as an inner critic, and you have started to police yourself against the parts of you that are bad or that are not going to receive approval. So let's say you struggle with anger problems. This is an emotion that society does not approve of. And of course, you cannot just go around expressing your anger in any kind of way you want, whenever you want. But anger is a reasonable emotion. It is an emotion and it deserves attention. And it's the same with anything else. The problems tend to occur, I believe, when we actually judge those emotions and we shove them down into the shadow and we say, no, you are not okay. Because the thing is, that is disapproval of the self. That is disapproval of whatever the hell's happening. If there was a child that was angry, I believe if you're a good parent, you would not be saying, you're angry, that's not okay. You're not allowed to be angry, because that is totally unhealthy. The people that tend to do that are the people that do that to themselves. And if you are watching this and you think, well, actually, I do that, don't be hard on yourself, because again, everything's an adaptation. We have learned to do this because we have learned that there are acceptable emotions, unacceptable emotions, acceptable things to say, unacceptable things to say. But the thing is, when we actually feed into that paradigm, we judge ourselves and we actually are so harsh on ourselves and we're critical to ourselves, and we are not exercising self-compassion and self-love. When you do not love the self, it is very difficult to love the people around you, because when you do not love yourself, you're going to try to vie for that love in sneaky, manipulative ways. So maybe you're going to seek sympathy, maybe you're going to be manipulative or passive aggressive in some way, because you're trying to get your needs met through the back door, but it doesn't work, because it isn't going to give you any healthy sense of love. All you're going to receive from that is a proximal emotion that feels a little bit like love, but it isn't really love, and it's an addictive cycle. We really need to become aware of all these different parts of ourselves, the parts that we like, the parts we don't like, and actually make space for all of it and accept that you are worthy of love right now. Not tomorrow, not when you've improved something, not when you've improved one of your skills or whatever else. You're worthy of love now, and it is really important to internalize this message, okay? And I know that it can be a challenge. Sometimes we can be loving ourselves and vibing with ourselves, and then sometimes we get knocked off the horse, but it's okay, we can get back on the horse. Whatever you've gone through, please do not feel discouraged. Please do not feel like everything is hopeless, because it is not. Every single day that we're alive, we have a chance to change the script, love ourselves, love our lives, love the good things that are in our lives. And you know, not every day is going to be an amazing day. Some days we're going to feel down, and that's okay. But actually, you're worthy of love, you're worthy of self-compassion. And if you need permission, I'm giving you it now. You have permission forever to love yourself and give yourself self-compassion. And you don't need my permission anyway. Thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave me a comment, because I would love to hear from you. And if you would like life coaching, I'm also offering life coaching sessions on my Patreon page, which you can check out in the description of the video. And I just want to say thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate you watching my videos, and ciao for now. Bye.